Welcome back to the weekly news roundup. We want to talk today about you wouldn't give your kids this, would you? I know that sounds like a very clickbaity title. Did it work? Let me know in the comments down below. Let's farm engagement. We've already engaged in clickbait. Let's go ahead. You all come here to see, would you give your kids this? And this starts with a viral video that came out this week, and it was an absolutely incredible video. We will go ahead and play it and hopefully not get any copyright strikes, but it will be worth the risk. So let's see what we get. But hey, if you're watching this after the fact and this part is missing, then it's because some troll's like, you gotta give me all your money. I was like, no. So anyway, let's see what this says.
Hey kiddo, it's about time for bed, okay?
Okay.
Well, remember, there's a box in the corner over there with all the pornographic material that's ever been made in the world, even the really weird stuff that could scar you for life. I'm trusting you not to look in there, okay?
Okay.
Feelings are for losers.
Oh, and this guy's gonna be in your corner all night just randomly spewing out hateful things. Just ignore him, okay? While I'm thinking of it, there's an order form on your desk where you can purchase illegal drugs. The mean girls from your school are going to be standing there talking about you all night. And this Russian hacker's going to keep asking for your password.
I'm not hacker. Amazon customer service.
Just need you to ignore him, okay?
Love you, buddy. We ask too much of our kids when we give them a smartphone. Let's change the norm. Together.
Maybe we go around the room and share social security numbers.
Okay, so this really hits the thing that I've been talking about for a while. And all of this stuff is like age verification, right? And it's like, okay, do I stop and wonder, like, how is verifying the age of somebody going to protect your children? No. This ad is so perfect because it highlights exactly what I've been talking about. We need parental digital neglect laws. While we're updating laws for the next millennium, and while we're updating laws for emerging technologies, maybe it's about time to stop caring about IDing everybody before they get on the internet and start saying, hey, parent, keep your child out of dangerous places. And we have to have a way to empower parents who want to take those steps to do those steps. And it should not cost an extra subscription service. I should not have to pay you $9.99 a month to keep my child safe on the internet. But I should have a responsibility to keep my child safe on the internet. And that really is the thing that we want to talk about here. This makes so many amazing points. The first is, and I argue this all the time. I apologize. I'm going to get a little bit spiritual here for a moment because I travel around the country and I see churches, and I see a huge fundamental flaw in churches that I see in America is called children's church. If you are going to a church, you need to start petitioning for the removal of that blasphemous crap. All right. Your children should be in the worship service with you. The idea of children's church is to say, we're going to take these kids and, we might be talking about adult subjects in the church. We're going to take the kids and give them age-appropriate teaching, which basically means you're giving them washed-down hogwash nonsense in the guise of Christian teaching. But did you know that most 8-year-olds have already seen pornography? Maybe it's better if your children learn about these things from the pastor with the family so you can talk about it rather than assuming your children are innocent. And I wrote in my book and Half My Life that kids know far more about these topics than you give them credit for. And one of the people reading my book was a very young man who had a pornography addiction. And he loved that section of the book because he says, yes, I've had other kids at camp professing pornography addictions they can't get out of at the age of 12. We need to stop giving our kids access to all these things and stop assuming that they're just innocent, sweet little children. When your little 8-year-old comes home and you're just thinking, oh, he's just a cute little 8-year-old, we got to protect him from the things of the world, he's probably already seen the things that you think he hasn't seen. Why? Because you have let that stuff into the house. You have not been accountable to keeping your networks clear. You have given him access to devices which can access things. And so this video starts out by saying, hey, there's this place over here in your bedroom that has all sorts of the perverse stuff in the world that you can see, and it's going to mess you up. Would you do that? Would you leave a box of Playboy magazines in your child's bedroom? I don't think you would. So why are you leaving a smartphone in your child's bedroom? Okay, and then we get onto this. We get onto the weird hate dude, whatever. He's just over there just spewing out all sorts of nonsense. And yeah, he's over there. And then you got the girls from school that are there. Okay, you got that going on for you. And then of course you got the hacker there trying to get in there. And then you got the place to get all the bad things on there. This is the parent's job to keep your kids safe from this. And you are failing at your job when you simply hand them a device. And this ad was so spot on. This needs to be the mantra that we use going forward. Anytime somebody talks about age verification, you should say no. Maybe you should just keep your kids accountable and let the internet go on as it was. Ooh, it might be unsafe on Roblox. Roblox shouldn't exist. There should not be a place on the internet where children can get together with internet strangers and engage in conversation. Roblox shouldn't exist. Now, I know the market economy might crash and some CEOs are going to lose their golden parachutes if Roblox were to fail out. But you know what? Why don't y'all just go take your stuff and build the same thing for 18-year-olds? Enjoy. Do it. And the problem here we have is that people just are not all that willing to take these steps. You want to blame everybody else around you, and that is a fundamental problem. And this collection of articles is kind of a mishmash of reasons and hows and whys and just examples of the dangers of it. And this is an interesting one here. So a mom got a call from a cartel who tortured her daughter until she paid their ransom. Of course, it was all an AI scam. And this is horrible. You're like, oh my. So this lady gets a call. She drops off her 15-year-old at school. This is in Las Vegas. And so she gets a phone call. Her daughter's crying and screaming on the phone. She's been kidnapped by a cartel. All right. So she says, I get the call at 8:30 in the morning. And the first thing I heard on the call was my daughter. It was very clearly her voice. She was crying, screaming, and pleading with me. A man named Angel said, there you go. Man named Angel said that they would keep on hurting the girl until she paid them $15,000. Angel said they grabbed the girl because she witnessed their men conducting a transaction at the school. So she goes into all this. It's like, this is just unrattling to you. All right. So eventually what ends up happening is they end up, her sister calls the school because they're like, don't call the police, don't do anything. So she lets a family member know. They call the school and the girl is fine in school. The kidnappers have cloned her voice with AI. None of this is real. You say, well, how does this relate to this video? Because you giving that device to your child is speaking around this thing, and it is collecting your voices. It is sending that out to data brokers. Data brokers are selling voice samples. AI systems create it. And with all of the stuff you share on social media, it just gives the hacker the perfect package of information. And these guys are really good at knowing where to pull those heartstrings. And I thought of this the other day when, I won't get into that story. But there was a case I saw the other day where I'm like, why are you letting these children near these devices? Because it raised a situation where this seems like an innocent thing to you, but there's so many apps listening in on this device. And it's a fundamental problem. It really is. It really is. So the FBI says this has been happening lately. They were using AI generated pictures. Now they're cloning your voice as well. All of this happens because you have given your children access to these devices. And this is a frightening thing that you should not do. Of course, now that we're all addicted to video games and stuff, PlayStation 5 owners will be locked out of certain features if you don't do this one thing. Age verification. That's the one thing. Footnote, age verification. If you do not verify your age, you can still play. You can even still play online, but you are not able to communicate or chat or anything else, which basically means, I haven't played an online game for years. I mean, the last time I played an online internet game was Warcraft 3. Okay, that predates World of Warcraft for you people keeping tabs. It's like, oh, World of Warcraft. No, Warcraft 3, well before World of Warcraft. All right, never touched that game. All right, but back then on Warcraft 3, you get on your BattleNet and you basically get, a bunch of random people get thrown into a game on a random team, and you could go in there and you do your little thing, and if you're good with communication with your keyboard, you can chat with everybody else that you're in there with, and you've never heard of any of these people. They don't know you, you don't know them, and you can do things. And I'm sure there were certainly cases where you'd get over there and be called an idiot or a moron or whatever else. You're just like, screw you, whatever. I'm here just having fun, and so you get a lot of these circumstances. What if these games are working the same way and you need to randomly communicate with the strangers you met on the internet to do this? You're basically an invisible player who can't interact with anybody, which basically means your experience is bad, everyone else's experience is bad, and this is going to give you a ton of peer pressure to just fork over that ID. Come on, man, this is your relaxation after all. Of course, you fork over your ID and you're the one that's developing that malware stuff because they've stolen your ID and verified their Google account with your stolen ID. Why not? I mean, come on. But yeah, UK PlayStation owners will have until the start of June 2026 to comply with the mandatory requirement or face being unable to use certain features. So the age verification is needed to allow specific functionality such as chats, messaging, and live stream. And of course, they're using, guess what? A third-party service. These never leak. These are perfectly safe. Not. And so, in terms of the video games industry that specifically applies social aspects of online play, it says hard for game publishers and console manufacturers to ensure underage players don't hear or read inappropriate language. Ooh! Okay, once again, parents, keep your children off of these things. Okay, there are a million things your kids can do that do not involve getting on the internet with strangers, particularly to do something as mind-riding as playing a game. And I don't say that offensively. I'm just saying you're not necessarily gaining a lot of it. I don't know. Maybe in our modern era, hey, if you're a really top 10 video gamer, maybe you're going to be recruited by the Army to pilot the drones. I don't know. Maybe I'm speaking old school here. But the reality is there are far better things your children can be doing than getting on the internet with random strangers and chatting. Period. Of course, speaking of Roblox that should not exist, hackers stole hundreds of thousands of Roblox accounts. Is your child one of them? 610,000 Roblox accounts were reportedly stolen. So between October 2025, January 2026, the hacking group said it have compromised 610,000 Roblox accounts, including at least 357 high-value elite accounts, making around $225,000 from selling access to them. Hackers distributed info-stealing malware disguised as game enhancement tools. Operation targeted Roblox accounts because they hold significant monetary value for many users. Accounts can contain high Roblox balances, limited edition items that can no longer be obtained, years of gaming progress with achievements, unlocks, and paid access to premium content. You're stealing accounts so you can play things you can't play anymore. Okay, I'm going to go back and reaffirm all of the brain-rotting comments I just said. I'm sorry. So if you've recently downloaded any suspicious game enhancements or other Roblox-related software, your first priority is to run a full anti-malware system scan, and then check for unknown, untrusted browser extensions and keep only those that came from verified, trusted sources. Or how about maybe keep the ones you've installed, But just be aware, they're stealing it. Now, to wrap up this section, I was on the fence about whether I was going to look at this one or not, but it is an opinion piece that comes out of Proton, and they did make some pretty good points that are just worth reiterating as we talk about these articles that we had just mentioned. So we must keep age verification from killing anonymity online. Online threats to children are real, but the headlong pursuit of age verification that we're seeing around the world is unacceptable in its approach and far too broad in scope. Few people would argue that kids should have unfettered access to adult material and self-harm videos on social media platforms that are manipulating them to expose them to abuse. Yes, this is true, but this is the thing. This stuff is on the internet. You have to keep your children safe from this stuff. This is why you are the parent. You are the parent to keep them away from the people that give you the heebie-jeebies. You are the parent. You're supposed to keep them away from the sources they have. You know, we used to have the Mr. Yuck stickers you put on stuff and train your kids really well. If you see this yuck sticker, it's yucky. Don't eat it. You know, that's what we used to do. Yeah, we need a giant Mr. Yuck over the internet. Okay, but let's say as a trained chemist, I can use those Mr. Yuck cleaning chemicals to wave a tapestry of cleanliness when used appropriately. I'm okay if you want to drop a couple of F-bombs. I'm not a huge advocate of using them myself, but I'm not going, he said bad words, just get over it, And I'm not going to tell everybody else they need to regulate their speech around me. I'm just going to, I might, however, choose to not spend time with people who I think need to have the regulated speech. That really is a principle there. And this is the thing. The internet is the bad part of town. By its very nature. You only go in the bad part of town when you have a very legitimate need to go into the bad part of town. And what I'm looking at here is to say, hey, let's not worry about all this kind of stuff. Let's go to the bad part of town, holding on to our kids for safety, and not let them journey down there alone. That's what we need to do. And then now we have this. So people are sending out passports and videos and fingerprints. What's happened? The same thing as always happens. The data gets leaked. We delete your data immediately. After we leak 70,000 IDs, of course. It's crazy. So they, of course, mentioned the Discord loss there, as what I was referencing. The more sensitive data you stockpile in privately held databases, the bigger a target becomes for criminals. This is also a reason I prefer to self-host all my information, even though it is a little bit harder to do. Because I am not in a giant Zoom database. I have my own self-hosted Jitsi instance. All right. So I'm not going to be caught up in some teleconferencing system account takeover. I'm just simply going to allow myself to, let's see. Oh, that's good. I have my own system. If my own system gets compromised, nobody else's data goes down with me. Just mine. But I'm also not a huge priority target. Why is somebody going to spend all this time trying to hack into a single small Jitsi server on, half a gigabyte of memory on a cloud server somewhere, It just, there's nothing there. That's what we're talking about. And the challenge is there's no heroes. European Union unveiled a mobile app that checks people's age, and it took hackers a matter of hours. One claimed only 2 minutes to discover fatal flaws. So here's EU. Yes, we are going to have a global age verification. We will manage it all. And it's built so crappily, they hacked it that quickly. So, of course, big tech, Apple, Microsoft, Google, these people are notoriously for collecting all the information possible. They're not trustworthy to be able to verify this information. Of course, now we're getting a whole bunch of third-party companies coming up to do this, like Yoti and a bunch of other ones. Why? And are these guys actually truly deleting the data? Have they been audited, by external auditors? This is an important thing to mention. With age verification, we are on the cusp of once and for all requiring ID for every single person to go on the internet. All right. So what's more, they're known to cave to state pressure and ban apps. So if every Apple account in the UK is tied to a government-issued ID, how long will it be before every other country expects the same? So when online anonymity is stripped away, whistleblowers keep their mouths shut. People in desperate need of help don't ask for it, and democracy itself suffers, as those who would seek to hold their government accountable don't always want to do so with their real name attached. That is true. Here are what the real threats are, according to Proton's opinion piece. We certainly cannot entrust it to the same giants that have proven track record of exploiting our personal information, or to the faceless new companies with incentives to misbehave, or to the governments that, let's face it, have their own history of failing to protect user information or abusing it themselves. And bit by bit, we need to tackle the real root cause of so much of these the harm we see online, the advertising and attention-based business model that gives almost every company incentive to spy. Now, their final point there, as you can see, centers around, hey, maybe we need to do something about this advertising industry. And I agree. We need to do something about the advertising industry. But we also need to say this isn't about protecting the kids by IDing everybody on the internet. This is about protecting the kids by being parents to those real kids and keeping those children off the internet. Because that device that you have is the box to all of the atrocities of the world. You would not let your 8-year-old meander into the world with the atrocities of the world alone. Stop giving them a smartphone. And if the Congress is going to do anything, you need to implement laws for digital neglect. That is what we need to do to protect us. Let me know your thoughts about all that in the comments down below.